Hi, howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. That totally makes sense to me. And once again, I want to, roll out the red carpet and invite you. It sounds like you might be able to make it this year. Come on up here to my research hotspots to drag Jenny with and spend some time up here in areas that I guarantee are hotspots.
Well, that's something we normally don't do. We normally don't go into people's research areas. We feel like those are covered and taken care of. We really like to show up to places unannounced and very small numbers. We feel like it improves our odds. As a matter of fact, both times I've had a Class A sighting where it's unmistakable, it's just been me and one other person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've never been into
Yeah,
the
most of my
conferences, the group Bigfoot, where people get a bunch of people together and go camping and Bigfooting and the big hurrah.
we don't do that either.
It's like finding Bigfoot. You know, how are you going to find Bigfoot when 25 people show up in five
You're not.
Chevy vans? It's not
Yeah.
happening.
No, but that's why we have success because we don't do things that way. We don't whoop. We don't wood knock. We don't have big crowd there. As a matter of fact, we got rules that they gave us. We're not allowed to have more than 2 new people there at a time. They prefer one. They already know everybody else is going to be there, so they're not worried about them. They only got one person to keep an eye on. And then after you've been there once and they decide that you're okay, then they don't pay that much attention to you the next time you show up either.
Yeah, I'm always I never announce where I'm going because I don't want someone showing up a day or two ahead of me and staging stuff. So I'm really secretive. People don't know where I've been till after I've been there, till they see the video. And I have people that really want to know where I'm going. Some guys like, hey, just tell me where you're gonna be, and I will keep up on the weather and worry about the weather for you. And I was like, that's not happening. You're not keeping up on the weather for me, man. I just don't like people knowing when I'm going into an area. It's crazy to me. I'll watch these online Bigfoot researchers that'll sit and do a countdown for months in advance. Like, we're going to be here and we're going to be looking for Bigfoot and blah, blah, blah. And every week they're giving everybody a reminder and everything. And I'm just like,
Clickbait artists.
Anybody that wants to mess with you knows exactly when you're going to be, where you're going to be. So how can you trust anything that you find in the area after that? So
Yeah.
I really like to keep it on the down low, but after I've been and gone, it's like, hey, this is where we were.
We almost never tell people when we're going somewhere or where we're going. Well, as a matter of fact, they don't know where we're going. Coloma, that's the only one, and we don't tell people that we're going to be there until after we've been there.
Yeah.
The other research area that I got, well, it's a pass through the middle of the Sapphire Mountain Ranges. It's 40 miles long. Good luck finding this spot.
Man. Those are some neat mountains with a lot of Bigfoot sightings.
Good luck finding the right spot. It's only 40 miles a pass you get to drive around in and try and figure out where we're at. So there's nobody up there messing with us. Most of the time, even though these areas are beautiful and campable, there's nobody up there, especially in the middle of the week. If you're up there on the weekend, yeah, maybe there's some people up there camping. Middle of the week, there's no one there. There's no humans up there.
I set up my Bigfoot expeditions for the middle of the week, most of them, and it's so nice on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Nobody's in any of these locations we go to on those days, especially.
Yep. Yeah, that's my favorite days to go do it, is go Monday through Thursday, because there's hardly ever anybody up there, unless they're practically living there. And the areas we go to, it's very uncommon for out-of-state people that are just driving around during the summer to randomly be there camping, because this isn't like listed on a travel brochure, and this road is freaking dangerous. So it's not like you're going to really want to drive your RV up this thing.
Yeah, most of the places we go, you get stuck in any type of an RV or large trailer. As a matter of fact, we have like a 12-foot trailer, and Jenny and I don't take it out very often because a lot of places that we go, we can't get it into. The only thing that we can get in there is a tent. So,
yeah. Well, as far as that goes, like I said, the invitation is open. Right. I don't need to bring any team members with. You just show up. I'll take you up there. You don't have to worry
Uh-huh.
about there being any other person up there bugging us. Because I just want to get a chance to see you chasing a Bigfoot trying to film it. And then I'll film you chasing the Bigfoot trying to film it. That's what I want to get on
You
camera.
never know how someone's going to react until something happens, and so that may not be the case every time. Might
Well, the
have my
ones that we
wits
got
about me
up,
the next
the
time.
ones we got in my research area are really used to us and they're very friendly and they like playing practical jokes. So it's hard to know exactly what they're going to do. Every time we're up there, it's something a little bit different. We had the Boggy Creek monster himself, Keith Crabtree, up there, and they tickled his feet while he was sleeping. So you never know what they're going to do next.
That Bigfoot that I saw in Indian Canyon in 2018, if that thing had been standing in my rear view mirror, I'd have never got out of the car. That thing was giant scary. It
Giant
was
monster.
probably twice as wide as the one I saw, that 7.5 footer. It was twice as wide as that thing and a couple feet taller, 3 feet taller at least. Just humongous, and just its size is intimidating. So I doubt I would have been able to see its head in my rearview mirror. I probably would have
No.
saw it from the chest down.
Yeah, it would have been like, what's that big furry brush pile back there? Is that a furry brush pile?
Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization. We're near the Jardine Juniper Mountain Trail, where a couple of mountain trail runners had a pretty scary up close Bigfoot sighting and encounter. We are very interested in their recent sighting because a Bigfoot was filmed only a few miles from here last year. Plus, during our investigations of that video, we have documented dozens and dozens of Bigfoot tracks in the area, along with several other sightings that have been reported to our team since. We're going to glass the ridge lines, tree lines, rock outcroppings along this Bigfoot sighting location, looking for the elusive Sasquatch, and go over the recent sighting report with you. Jeffrey writes R.M.S.O. My wife and I currently live in Logan. We are in our late 20s and early 30s. A little background on us. We are both extremely outdoorsy people. I am from a remote area on the north slope of the Uintas and basically live on the mountain, hunting, fishing, logging, hiking, and ranching. I spent 5 years as a wildland firefighter at a high level with the Forest Service and BLM, Department of Interior. I absolutely love wildland fire, the community, the science, and the history, and have the fondest memories. It took me some amazing remote areas and tested my mental, physical fitness to the extreme. I am still involved to a lesser degree. We hike and trail run on a ton of the cache and back home in the Uintas. I have never had anything weird happen that I can recall except a few tree knocks and rocks thrown in high elevation lakes. I didn't know what those were at the time and basically just ignored those things. We are big fans of your channel and Sasquatch Chronicles and Steve with How to Hunt. As we are very outdoorsy, the subject of Sasquatch has always been interesting to us. We have pretty open minds and accept that the universe is massive, and to think that man or science has all the answers is preposterous. Now to the incident. We had been hiking the Jardine Juniper Trail a lot this year, as well as other trails to get ready for hunting season. The Jardine Trail is one of our favorites, and we spent a lot of time there this year, as it is a good long trail with a little traffic. I had logged about 23 hikes, runs there this year, sometimes alone, sometimes with my wife and others. In August of this year, 2021, we started hiking in the evenings because it was so hot in the daytime. We had done a couple of evening hikes the first part of August with no problems whatsoever. Usually, we would make it back to the truck by dark. On the night that it happened, which I believe was August 10th, I lost track of time and we got a little bit of a late start. We were above the main switchbacks, which is about 3 miles in, when it started getting dark on us, so we decided to turn around. We were both working full-time and were hiking this area about 3 times a week at this point, so we didn't always do the full route each time.
usually just a 5 to 7 mile power hike round trip. We were pretty sure we were the last ones up there. We had been passed by a couple of bikers on the way up. We were moving pretty fast and quiet as we were making our way down the switchbacks, just enjoying the late summer stillness in the large timber. The slope is steep, but the trail winds through large trees nicely and gives you glimpses of the basin below and high peaks above. It was twilight, so maybe 15 minutes or so until we needed headlamps to see. We came around this slight turn in the trail right before the large hairpin turn at the bottom of the slope, and almost as if caught by surprise, I saw this massive jet black figure go from standing to crouching through a small gap in the timber about 50 yards ahead and just downslope of the trail. Looking back, I am surprised that I didn't freeze or turn back to my wife to confirm what we saw. But all that crossed my mind was, that's weird. Without pause, we kept moving briskly. It was too dark to see detail, but light enough to see our surroundings quite well. Sometimes you think your mind plays tricks on you in the twilight hours, especially in timber with so many shadows. It seemed just seconds after seeing the creature I heard a loud crack against a prominent large tree directly upslope from us on our left. There may have been two cracks. I really can't remember. I turned around thinking that maybe my wife was messing with me and throwing rocks. As I turned and my eyes caught hers, I could tell she wasn't throwing anything, as we were both tired and dazed from our hike. My mind started racing a million miles an hour trying to figure out what animal could do that. The answer is obvious. None. Both of us were frozen. We were trying to figure out what was going on. Another rock flew directly over us, and this time it smacked the tree with unbelievable force. You could feel the air from it zipping by. It reminded me of my baseball days, hearing the sound of the seams of a fast pitch whizzing through the air. I think I quietly mumbled, "Someone is messing with us." The mind does funny things when full of adrenaline. I could tell that we both came to the same realization at the time without saying a word, just by looking at her facial expression. That realization was that, oh, we are not alone and it isn't human. I didn't feel in danger, but needless to say, the feeling was get going, which we obliged. I ripped my handgun out of my pack as we moved, but it was almost as if my arm was paralyzed at my side with the gun pointing down at the ground. I felt helpless even with the 10mm in my hand. The thought in my mind was, what good is this going to do? Whether it was annoyed or amused, I really can't say. I just wanted to put as much space between us and it as quickly as possible. The only way I can describe it is like when someone sees a ghost. The interaction is real, but it isn't normal. You struggle to grasp what happened. It's hard to comprehend things every time your universe expands. We moved almost to the point of running until we popped out of the timber and it opened up a bit, still feeling uneasy as we had a long way to go in the dark. We briefly had to stop to put our headlamps on, not saying a word other than, "That's weird." The whole way out, my mind kept trying to reason with what had happened, but it couldn't. It was so deliberate. We made it back in record time. I didn't put two and two together until we were back at the trailhead. What I saw seconds before it happened was the being that threw the rocks. My wife said she also saw it. It stood out like a sore thumb. Even though it was getting dark when I saw it, its blackness was almost radiating against the dark shadows of the forest. So many emotions were going through me. Confusion, anger, intrigue, curiosity. I kept thinking, why us and why now? After all this time in the outdoors, I wanted to try to write it off as me going crazy. My mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe, if that had happened to me while I was alone, I might have written it off. But I wasn't alone, and what we both experienced was very real. I was so disturbed by that incident at first, but I couldn't let this thing control me. I had a couple of guys I worked with go up with me a couple of nights later. We stopped at the same gap in the timber so I could better gauge its size, seeing the pocket it was in better lighting. It had to have been massive. The interesting thing is, when we were right next to this thing during its baseball practice, the foliage was too thick to see anything. It had to have been less than 10 yards away. It was also in between two trails, as it was a large switchback. One moment we were directly above it, the next we were directly below it. Eerie doesn't begin to describe how I felt. To be so close and not see a thing is unreal. I also had the guys throw fist-sized rocks hard as they could, point blank at the large tree in the same area to compare sounds. My blood ran cold as I heard their rocks make little ping sounds compared to the loud cracks from the 2 nights previous. The realization was creeping in that these things are real, and what we had encountered was in fact a Sasquatch. In the following weeks, I intentionally went back with others in the evening to prove to myself and this creature that I wasn't going to let it control me. I went down so many rabbit holes trying to understand what these things are. I have read and listened to so many other people's accounts, which has helped me a lot. My wife and I love the outdoors too much to let this dictate how we live. For all I know, they have always been around me. It's just that now I'm hyper aware. Anyway, I know that this incident is pretty tame compared to others, and I'm okay with that. Haha. I would take a rock throwing to a screaming or growling any day. I hope that this information is helpful, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Feel free to use my name. Thanks for all you do, Jeff. R.M.S.O responds, Hi, Jeff. Appreciate hearing from you. When you saw its black shape, could you estimate the height, width, or weight? Could you see its face or eyes? Jeff responds, The night it happened, its sheer size and dark color caught my eye first. When it rapidly went from standing crouching, as if we caught it by surprise, it made it hard to see the details of its face, but I could tell it was looking right at us. Even though it was getting dark, you could still see pretty good. Its dark color was almost radiating against the other shadows of the forest. When I went back up there the other day, I wanted to get a better idea of the size of this thing in better lighting by peering through the same gap in the timber and seeing the pocket where it stood. It had to have been massive. I would put it at 9 feet tall easily, maybe more. It was very broad as well. I've been right next to moose hundreds of times back home in the Uintas. We have also worked many draft horses. This thing made them seem small. It still amazes me how, when it was throwing rocks a few moments after we saw it, we could have been directly next to it, literally right above it, closer than 10 yards. The foliage was too thick to see it at that point, also because it was in a switchback. We were within 10 yards of it from below. It blended in perfectly. Appreciate your Bigfoot sighting report, Jeff. These sighting reports help give us a picture, a window into the life of the creature, its habits, what it may eat, the resources it may use when we go into an area and check around. You're right in the middle of a Bigfoot sighting hotspot. Bigfoot was filmed last year, not too far from where you had your sighting, even closer to where you had your sighting many years ago. A gentleman and his dog was ran out of camp by 2 Sasquatch that come down out of the trees into his camp. Terrifying experience. I hope everybody enjoyed this Bigfoot sighting. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting, please email us at rmsobigfoot@gmail.com. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of stuff before. What's that big black object on the top of that ridge line half a mile away?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing there that should be making that shadow. What the hell is that? Creepy stuff. And, of course, you're so far away and you can't get a clear video of it. So it's open to anybody to go, oh, that was nothing. It's on the top of a ridge line. There's open air behind it. What's making that shadow that's 12 or more feet tall?
Yeah, from the very beginning of Bigfooting, I just knew when we got serious about it that I needed to get cameras with great zoom capabilities because I felt like my odds of seeing one on the next mountain ridge were probably a lot better than one up close and personal. The ones up close and personal are probably going to be moving, fleeting, and the sighting isn't going to happen very long. So it's like the one that I saw in Indian Canyon. I saw it from about a quarter of a mile away from a moving car. And that one I probably stared at for 5, 6, 7 seconds as I'm reaching for the camera, telling Jenny to pull over. By the time I roll out of the car with the camera, it's gone. but I got to see it for quite a while, and that was at a distance. The one in my rear view mirror was probably 2-3 seconds tops.
Wow.
The up close one, and it was gone, never to show itself again.
Well, even if you don't get them on camera, it's so freaking fun to be able to actually see them. Getting them on camera is like, 1 in a million, icing on the cake. Even if you're really good at it, you know where they're at. You're up there right when they're around. They're following you around. It's still almost impossible to get them on camera. So when you do, whether you do it on purpose or accidentally, I don't care. That's still great. You're getting them on camera. They're around where you're at. You're not wasting your time.
You're more than likely to catch them on accident.
Yeah, absolutely. There's very few of them I've ever caught on purpose. Like the one story I was starting to tell you earlier, where I turned around, I could feel that there was someone behind me, something was watching me, and I again couldn't see what the hell I was looking at through the tiny viewfinder. Just zoomed in on this one area with some very strange looking black shadows, and then zoomed back out again. When I came back and looked at it, there's a tree trunk there, and laying in front of the tree, there's a fallen log. And on one side of the tree trunk, there's 2 adults lying there. One's on the back of the other one, peeking over its head. And they're both watching me. And on the other side of the tree, behind the fallen tree trunk, there's some little juvies there. And all of them are smart enough to be like in a big clump, so it's hard to differentiate what they are. And none of them have their faces turned toward me, except for the little one at the bottom. And you can see both of his eyes are like this as I zoom in on him. He's got this look like, oh crap, I'm on camera. Oh crap, oh crap. And the other ones are like, don't move, don't move, don't move. And I zoom back out again. He moved a little bit. You could see him move a little bit. But just those 2 big eyes like, oh crap, I'm on camera. They busted me. And of course, it's the littlest one. The other ones around him all knew better. Don't let your face be seen. Hide your face. Any other things about this year in Bigfooting for the mighty Rocky Mountain Sasquatch organization that you wanted to let my viewers know about, so they should go over to your channel and pay special attention?
Well, we've received a lot of sightings with pictures of suspect Bigfoot, videos, a lot of stuff come down from Canada. The last couple of years, Michigan has just, especially the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, around those Great Lakes and stuff. The last couple of years, it's been a hot spot. I have probably got more sighting reports, videos, and photos from that area than Washington. Washington's historically the #1 Bigfoot sighting hotspot in the world, #1 reported. And the last couple of years, Michigan and Ontario have been kicking butt. And maybe it's because I've just gotten lucky and the people have been willing to report it. You people in Washington, you need to start sending us your sighting reports because everybody else is kicking your butt lately.
Yeah. Step it up, Washington.
He sent us this photo, and then he was having difficulty sending the video. They finally sent us a video. It's 4.7 seconds long. He says, my cousin was kayaking on the Coss River here in Michigan when he took this picture. Not sure what it is, but I've sent it to a few people, and some say it's Bigfoot carrying an infant. Others say it's Bigfoot carrying a deer. Okay, we've got the video. I've done several things with it, and so I'm going to walk you through the stages of me breaking down the video, trying to figure out what it is. I'll show you the original, then I will slow it down 50%, then 25%, then 15%. Then I'll run them all together stabilized. I'll separate each with a time lapse. Here they go.
Well, I remember. Well, I remember.
I'm going to run all this again back to back, and I'm going to zoom in so we can get a better look. And then I'm going to tell you guys what I think about this, point out some things I see in the video, and I am going to show you some of the best screenshots of the video and zoom in on some of those so we can try and get a feel for what's going on in this video. I'm on the fence. I'm not sure what this is in the video. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot, and I'm not saying it isn't. This is obviously shot with a cell phone at 880 by 656 resolutions. It's 30 frames per second. It isn't the greatest footage. It's all we have to go with. So you be the judge on what you think it is. I don't know what it is. At the end of this clip, I am going to show you some of my favorite screenshots. I'm going to zoom in on the side profile where you can see the nose and everything. And then there's a couple of shots, or at least there's one shot where it looks at the camera. And then I want to also zoom in on the very last frame. Right now, you guys are watching the cropped version. I cropped in on the video, the original, 50%, 15%, and 25%. Also, don't know if anyone noticed, but it's walking directly under some power lines. Bobo talks about a Bigfoot highway, those easements of the power lines, so it looks like it's crossing the river under the power lines, so it's going easement to easement. There will be a small clearing that will make it easier for it to travel through the thick of the forest. I'm going to zoom in on a screenshot roughly 4 seconds in. It's a side profile shot, so we'll zoom in on that screenshot. You can see the nose and everything. You can make out the nose of the subject on the side profile of this screenshot. The next one is the only photo that they took of the creature, so it's the best resolution, and I zoom in on that. I think this is the best look at it, the original. I don't know what it is. I'm a little bit skeptical. Whatever, you be the judge. I will end this with the final frame of the video before the cell phone quits filming. This is zoomed in. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.
You know who else needs to
Don't
step
be
it up?
afraid to report it.
You know who needs to send a lot more reports to Kelly? I've been tracking that also Wisconsin and especially northern Minnesota, there's been a lot more reports coming out. And I think what it is mainly is the people are starting to realize they're actually there. And they're starting to pay attention, and it's not such a big ridicule thing anymore. And some of them feel like they can come forward and contact somebody. I've had 3 different people in northern Minnesota actually get a hold of me this year to tell me about all the activity that's going on up there. And that's where I grew up. And that don't surprise me at all, because there's gigantic areas of woods and lakes and stuff up there that you can't even access. The largest bog in the lower 48 states is in northern Minnesota. It's 200 square miles. There's no access. So imagine what's running around up there. People can't get anywhere near them. There's 30,000 lakes in Minnesota. If you fly over northern Minnesota, it looks like all water with little strips of land connecting it. There's a
Water world.
ridiculous amount of habitat for them up there. And you know, Kelly, they're really good swimmers. A little thing like a mile-long lake isn't going to slow them down at all.
Oh gosh, I've had witnesses report seeing them swim across the Bear River. You know, a fast flowing river with rapids and everything, and they just swim across like a champ.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of reports of that. I've heard actually a report of somebody that was on their way to Vancouver Island, and the channel in between, there was a friggin' Bigfoot that was swimming out to the island. And they couldn't figure out what it was. They had to get up close to it to see what they were looking at. They thought maybe it was a seal or something. And then when they got close enough to see that huge head and the arms, paddling away, and they went, let's get the boat further away from this thing.
Well, and then people report seeing them swim off the coast of North California, off of Trinidad. And so I think people are seeing them swimming in a favorite spot where they probably dive down into the kelp and get crabs and crustaceans and mussels and all that. I'm sure that they're not swimming in the water because it's fun. I'm sure they're in there for the food. And another thing that makes me think this is because a lot of times at night in the redwood areas of California, people will report seeing them cross the road coming from the beach going up into the forest, and they'll have handfuls of kelp and stuff.
Yeah.
So just going down for the smorgasbord, eating what they want on the beach and taking the rest up into the woods to eat for later. And the kelp's good eating from what I understand too, if you can stomach the taste.
Yeah. Well, the Japanese like it. But I've heard reports all the way up the coast from actual legit Bigfoot researchers that have found examples of them doing this sort of thing. And especially with like clams and mussels and stuff like that, they'll wade right in the water and pull out a ton of them. And then they'll find a big pile of all these discarded shells, and they're like, what could actually eat this many at one time? It's not a bear doing it. Something with hands that can go dig in the water, down 6-7 feet deep, pull up all these tons of things, and leave a pile half the size of a trash can of empty shells lying there. What's doing that? No sign humans did it. Makes you wonder. Well, we're running long on time here, and I know you probably got better things to do than sit around and BS with me all day long. Although the fans
been awesome.
The fans are loving it, of course, because hey, it's Kelly Shaw, man. Kelly Shaw, Rocky Mountain.
I really
Sasquatch.
enjoy being on World Bigfoot Radio. Let me see. I wrote it down. World Bigfoot Central.
There you go. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I need to actually get that all changed around. It's on my list of things to do. I'll get to it. But meanwhile, it looks like the thermal holocaust is finally setting in the west here over the mountain. So I haven't got all of that bright light coming in here frying me. Sorry about that, guys. Kelly's only available in the middle of the day.
Before you let me go, I wanted to tell you about a Bigfoot sighting report that I just got recently from your area.
Right.
Let me bring it up real quick.
Let's hear that. You got the Kelly Shaw himself, the man, telling us a Montana Bigfoot report from my area.
It's close to where you live. Well, closer than me anyway. Seeley Lake.
Oh, I know exactly where that is. That's where all the rich folks have cabins.
Yep. Shout out to Bruno. Bruno sent me this Bigfoot sighting report just a couple of days ago. He actually sent it on December 29th, but yeah, he saw it near Seeley Lake. He's from out of town. He flew in to Kalispell Airport and driving to his uncle's property in Seeley Lake. He saw a Bigfoot that was over 6 feet tall. Him and the person that he was driving with. So, yeah, I was like, hey, that's not too far from Missoula. That's where.
No, that's real close.
So anyway,
I don't know if I've ever mentioned it, but there was a Bigfoot sighting. There's actually 2 Bigfoot sightings that were from in Missoula. 3, come to think of it. One person was on the 6th floor of the hospital looking out the window toward the mountainside, and there was something moving. And and they got a closer look at it. And yeah, it was way too big to be a human moving across the mountainside. And they were watching this midday. Another one, there was somebody going through the canyon in between East Missoula and Missoula proper, which is a pretty slim canyon. That the town was originally named Hellgate after that canyon, because when the early explorers tried to come through there, they got turned into pincushions by the natives who shot them full of arrows. And so they named it Hellgate. And it was only recently that Missoula got named Missoula. It was Hell's Gate for a long time. Hellgate High School is still here. And then I ran into somebody actually that saw one walking through Hellgate on the sidewalk from Missoula to East Missoula. There was one up on the hillside up above them following a herd of mountain goats, and he observed it for a good 15 minutes as it was slowly making its way along the mountain. And then another one that was actually reported to BFRO happened right on Waterworks Hill, which is right next to downtown. It was a lady from Connecticut and her daughter were both here sightseeing, and they decided they wanted to get a really good view of the sun coming up in the morning. So Waterworks Hill was the nearest place with a hiking trail, and they decided they would walk up Waterworks Hill, get to the top of it by the time the sun came up, get some spectacular pictures. Well, what went wrong with this plan is about 2/3 of the way up the hill, and this hill is mostly denuded. All the mountainsides and hills around town, they cut all the trees down on purpose. So in this fire season, fires can't burn right into town and burn down the buildings. So there's very few trees or anything on this hill. And they get about 2/3 of the way up it, and one of the trees further up the hill above them stands up and runs away. So then they decided to change the plan to scream and run the opposite direction. And so they didn't get their great morning shots of the sunrise. But there's like literally been Bigfoot reports from inside town here. That's how common they are around the area.
Well, the Seeley Lake one, he describes it as actually, I'm reading down further in the report. There was two of them. He noticed the one that was over 6 feet and told the person driving that come to a stop. And that person said, "Hey, quit bullshitting me." And then they stopped, and he saw a different one that put its hand on the shorter one, a much larger one that was gray, put its hand on the one's shoulder before they split into cover, and it was gray. And this hair that I showed you, when we collected it, the two large tufts of hair looked grayish blue until we gathered it up, and when we have it together like this, it's blackish, but it was grayish blue. If this was on the creature in the thinner wisps that we collected it in, the creature would look gray. It's just amazing how the hair can change color. I'll have to send you photos of when I collect the hair. It laying on the ground, it looks grayish blue. I don't know what it looks like to you in this bag.
Yeah, it looks kind of brownish black in the bag. You can't really see any other color on it.
It's just weird how the hair can change color like that. But yeah, I don't know how many gray ones they see out there, but they said that these ones were gray. I want to read the report a little bit more. I know he says
yeah, if you got pictures,
the small one was pitch black. The one that was over 6 foot was pitch black. The bigger one that put its hand on the shoulder that they didn't see till a little bit later into the encounter was gray. So it's like this, even though the gray one was bigger, it was harder to see at first until they come to a stop. And then the driver's like, "Hey, quit bullshitting me." He immediately saw the bigger one. So they saw two of them at Seeley Lake.
Wow. That is
cool. That's kind of your turf. How far is that from where you live?
Not very far, like 30 miles or something, probably less than that even.
Oh, that's your backyard, man.
Practically, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Well, I mean, literally right here in town. From where I'm sitting right now, 3 miles away is where Waterworks Hill was, where those people had the tree stand up and run away from them. One of my hot research areas that I hardly ever go to anymore is right in Patty Canyon hiking area, which is just up the hill from me. It's 2 miles away. I can take you up there and show you tree structures and probably find tracks at the same time. Just about any time I want to go up there. They're right up there.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, it was like so convenient. We didn't want to go to some of the other better research areas for a while because it's like, well, that one's only 2 miles away. let's go up there and walk around for 2 or 3 hours and see what we can find. And every time we were finding stuff that, so makes it like, well, we could go to this other hotter area that's 50 miles away. Let's go to the one that's 2 miles away.
Well, the more convenient place that you can spend more time, I think the more time you spend, it increases your odds.
Oh,
So-
absolutely. Well, I camped up there illegally one summer, and then 2 years later, one of my viewers from San Diego, Vinny, showed up, just had a day to spend. And I went, well, there's 2 areas that are close to here. We can go over and hit Blue Mountain, which is about 7-8 miles away, and then we can go right up here to Patty Canyon and see if we can find anything up there. Well, while we're up there walking around, we're finding like discarded front leg of an elk. There's no hunting up there. There's no big predators up there. Find a couple tracks and stuff. We go back to this one area, and I went, well, here's where we caught one on camera. And I'm standing there and I'm describing this whole thing. And he takes a picture of me standing there describing it. Then like 2 days later, he sends me this screen capture and he goes, hey, here's a Bigfoot's face. And I'm like, awesome. Whose video did that come from? And he goes, no, that was in the background of the picture I took of you. I'm like, what? How can that be possible? He goes, I took it in HD. And I'm like, send me the HD picture. So then I sent it to a couple of my friends. Within under a day, 2 more of them had found more in the background. It turns out there was at least 5 watching us when he took that one picture. And that was the same group that I had been up there camping with a few years earlier. And I gave the alpha male pork chops. So they're probably following us around going, hey, you guys get any more pork chops? But yeah, that's also, if you guys ever seen the one T-shirt that I have available that says Sasquatch has my back, and it's got a picture of 12-foot Mr. Big peeking around a tree looking at us. That's the same place that was taken.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he did leave a 21-inch track, so we're pretty sure same Bigfoot that we got on camera was the one that left the 21-inch track. Because 12 feet, freaking huge. Yeah.
Finding tracks that big is just intimidating. Looking at those things, thinking, how in the hell big is something that makes tracks like that huge? And then when you see the stride, I mean, I know they don't always walk at full stride, but when you see a decent sized stride between those, it's just crazy scary.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Same feeling I get whenever I find one of their mountain-sized tree structures. They make those super structures up here. And dude, they're the scariest thing up here. It's not seeing them or their tracks. You get next to some of these giant structures, and you just feel like a little ant. You're like, my God, what can move this stuff around and make something this big? This freaking structure is 5 stories tall, or it's 6 stories tall. Holy crap.
It takes some muscle.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, they're using entire lodgepole pines, and I've asked the local loggers, how much does the lodgepole pine this big weigh? And the estimate's usually around 3 tons. Well, what the hell can pick up 3 tons and move it around?
Not me.
No, not me neither. Even when I was bodybuilding and I was like trying to compete with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I still couldn't lift that much weight. My best bench press ever was 405. I'm not picking up a 3-ton tree, I'll tell you that, especially not at my age.
Nope, you're gonna pull and rip something if you even try, man.
It'll just crush me into the ground. I'll be a stake in the ground.
Yeah, those are the structures I like, the ones that have no rhyme or reason and would take several fit men with ropes and pulleys. It's like, why is someone going to hike 8 miles off trail to make one of these teepee structures on a hillside that nobody's ever going to want to sleep under? It just don't make sense. Except
it's not a good
break
break from the weather.
Unless you're like saying, this is the edge of my territory. This is mine. That's
those giant X structures that we find. That's what they are. We're convinced of it. Territorial markers, and we've actually caught them setting them up because we've canvassed some of these areas. There's nothing there, and we'll come back the next year. There they are. Or they had an X structure that they converted into a teepee. And we got it the first year. They had just made the X structure. We got it on video. Came back the next year. Now they've converted it into a teepee. And then every month that summer, we came back to the same spot and filmed it again just in case. And sure enough, every time they had modified it. In the middle of the summer, they took this nice live 40-foot pine tree and bent the top of it and stuck it underneath the structure. Well, that ain't happening from the weather.
Well, and if you're not going back and visiting these structures, you're not going to see that happen. We started a GPS map overlay at Jenny's request when we started finding these crazy structures in Bigfoot sighting hotspots. We started a GPS map overlay, and we try and visit certain structures annually or twice a year. And there's been 2 different structures. One in the Uintas up on top of the mountains there in Bear Wallow, and one in Sasquatch Canyon that we've seen a log added to. And we would have never known that an log was added if we weren't recording them, taking pictures, and revisiting them. And both logs, we were able to find the indentation where they had been laying on the ground before they were put up into the structure. And we're all looking at each other, people that blame it on the weather. Well, the weather doesn't pick a log up off the ground and shove it up into the host tree structure.
Nope.
So I don't know where people get weather, because weather in the Rockies just doesn't pick logs up off the ground and set them out.
No, it doesn't rip trees out of the ground and put them together in X structures with the roots upside down either.
But if we weren't revisiting these, so it was a great idea that she come up with, and if we hadn't been revisiting, we would have never been able to document that happening.
I totally agree, and we're the point of the spear on this one, because we're going back to these middle of nowhere huge structures that are incredibly hard to get to or find to start with, and documenting that they're making changes on them. And one of my favorite ones was a deconstruction, where we found a 6-story tall X structure made out of lodgepole pines, and we came back 2 years later. They had deconstructed it. It was all leaning on a tree that had a fork on the top of it. And there was 2 of them that were crossing each other, and then there was a third one that was leaning against that. Well, when we came back, all of those trees were laying there next to where they had been. So what was holding them up? That one center tree that had the fork in it. Well, guess what? That tree's still there, and that fork's still there. How did all those other trees all of a sudden not be leaning up there anymore? Now they're laying on the ground next to it.
Yeah, we saw a structure in Yellowstone Canyon, Uintas, that got destroyed one year, and we kept finding 19-inch tracks, 17-inch tracks, but never together. But once in a while, the 19-inch tracks would be with one that has 14-inch tracks, and once in a while, the 17-inch tracks would be one with 14-inch, and every once in a while, near the one with 14-inch tracks, we find juvenile 7 and 8 inch tracks near that one. So we pretty sure that one's the female, and
Yeah.
it sets the infant down once in a while. And we even recorded one year where the infant's tracks had grown from 7 to 8 inches. Well, it makes us wonder if the 17's a male, the 19's a male, and one or the other destroyed a structure as a challenge to the alpha, that it wanted to challenge it for the area. So that's, don't know why it was destroyed.
Yeah.
And it's in the same area where we found the
It's a
chunk
big
of
chunk of
hair.
hair. There's
So
a big chunk there again.
was that a fight? Was one of the alphas ripping hair out of the other alphas, or was it getting rough and making another baby Bigfoot?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fun to find the evidence and think of the possibilities of why and how this stuff got there. But we may have witnessed an alpha male getting challenged for his territory, with that structure being destroyed and the torn out hair and all that.
Yeah, it just amazes me at how many times now we found some of the smaller structures where they've actually apparently disassembled them and they use the same exact pieces to make some other thing out of them. We had one area, it was apparently a playground where the kids like to tinker around, and those were their Lincoln Logs or Legos or whatever, their version of it. And every time we would go up there, things would be different, and we'd document it. But a lot of the time, they were using the same pieces of wood. They just take apart something they had already made, and then they'd be all rearranged. They'd all be leaning against one tree with some crosshatched weird pattern to it, or they'd take like a little miniature teepee and they turned it into some longer looking structure that no human could even fit in, much less a little bitty Sasquatch, you know. So really
Well,
weird stuff.
Brody and I tracked the 19-inch long tracks and the 14-inch long tracks. We tracked them up a mountainside, and it was the first time. I can't say it was the first time. It's the second time I definitively saw Bigfoot handprints and recorded them. And the one with 14-inch tracks kept putting its left hand down at really steep locations, and whatever, it needed it, and Bigfoot's known for going down on all fours, but it was just the one. It kept sticking down at intervals, and then we get to a flat spot, and that's when we found the one that leaves the 8-inch tracks. It's like, oh, she was carrying the infant in her right hand. That's one reason why she kept putting the left hand down. The one that left 19-inch tracks was never putting a handprint down, but it looks like they took a break at this level spot. And where they took the break, there was a bunch of these like 2-foot tall stick structures made. Like the infant was copying the adults. It was making it was using little pine trees as the host tree and putting little 2-3 foot sticks making teepees, and you could see this infant had a lot of energy. You could see where it was rolling around, tearing bark off of trees, and it made several of these little structures. And so I know, it was just really neat. And because of that, and also in Lost Creek, the one in Lost Creek was leaving handprints on the ground. I've got a really good idea the dimension of a Bigfoot's handprint, and I've also seen that on the Olympic Peninsula up there a couple of years ago, where this Bigfoot was sitting down, and it got up with one hand out like it's left, and its knuckle print is how it helped itself up, or possibly sat down in the moss, that thick moss, really soft place to take a break and nap. But yeah, we found a bedding spot with the tracks and everything, and boom, it got up like that. So I found the left hand a couple of times now in Lost Creek. I think we found a spots where it used both hands to get up.
Yeah,
Where
the
it
only
did
open
that.
handprint I could think of finding was actually in the sand down by the Blackfoot River. And if you put your hand in the sand and then push off and pull your hand away, you can vaguely see the imprint, but you're not going to get any detail out of it at all. The only reason I could think it was a Bigfoot print is because the handprint was like twice the size of my hand. So I don't know of any humans that have a hand that's twice the size of mine. But we found knuckle prints quite a lot. We found quite a few knuckle prints on the ground where they just stop and they're like either on all fours or they drop down to all fours and sit there for a minute and they leave a nice big fat knuckle. Looks like the Incredible Hulk just punched the ground. Nice big fat knuckle print.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed about that female that was carrying the infant that kept putting her left hand down, well, she has just a little bit over a 14-inch footprint track in length. Well, her handprint from the bottom of the palm to the longest finger was 14 inches. It matched the length of her foot. And then in proportion to a human's hand, the thumb seems a little bit shorter and a
Yep.
lot more fatter
hmm
than a person's. But
Usually the thumb looks like it's further back on the hand than where ours is actually attached to.
I'm sure every individual has different characteristics, but it's starting to make me wonder, are there hand lengths from the bottom of their palm to the longest finger around or close to the same as the length of their foot? Since we documented that female was almost identical. Her hand was as long as her foot.
Well, there's an interesting data set we can be trying to get information on now. You brought it up. Are
People
their
will
hands
watch
the
for
same
that.
length as their feet? Let's see if we can get the data to check it out.
And I hear a lot of people that say, gosh, their hand was as big as a baseball mitt. And I remember a Bigfoot sighting reports that I think was on Monster Quest, where they saw it scooping fish out of a creek. The people were
Right.
actually up there getting the minnows that spawn for bait, and they had a Bigfoot sighting. A couple of them did, and it was scooping those out. I think it was there for the fingerlings or whatever that they were there for too. But yeah, I mean, big old mitts to scoop fish out of the water. That Yellowstone Canyon area that I was telling you about with the destroyed structure, those mountaintop ponds up there, during certain times of the year when we're up there, it's just nuts with frogs. Those those little frogs. I mean,
Yeah.
hundreds and thousands of them, and they're easy to catch. I mean, we'll catch a bunch and play with them and all that, but you got some big mitts, they're easy to catch. I could just imagine a Bigfoot up there taking just handfuls, and you spend a couple hours, 10,000 calories, easy food.
Yeah. I don't know if the report you're talking about is the same one I heard, but there was actually more than one Bigfoot involved. And the big adult, apparently male, was using his steam shovel scoop hands to scoop fish out of the river and throw them over his shoulder. And one of the kids was up on the bank grabbing the fish before they'd flop back in the river and haul them off into the woods so that they'd get all of them.
Yet there's so many reports of fish and Bigfoot. It's definitely got to be one of their food sources. I mean,
Yep.
people have had fish, have watched Bigfoot still fish right out of their camp,
Yep.
on their stringers hanging in a tree, and a Bigfoot walks right in, boom. I've remember one in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon where someone witnessed a Bigfoot doing that. As a matter of fact, my grandpa's Bigfoot sighting, the Bigfoot
Yep.
come up on him while he was fishing, and he finally just started throwing them fish, thinking, maybe that's what they want, and they took them and left.
Probably was what they want. And we got lots of reports from the tribes who going back centuries where they'd have fish traps set up in the river and stuff. And if they didn't get the fish out of them before dark, well, guess what? There wasn't any fish in them the next morning because somebody else would show up in the middle of the night and take all of them.
Yeah, those fish have some healthy proteins and fats, and so it's a really good nutritious food source. So I see why the Bigfoot like them.
Yeah, well, makes salmon make grizzlies big too. So it just makes sense. They'd want that nice, huge, fat, good food source. All right, buddy. Well, we've gone over 2 hours here, so I'm sure everybody is like, okay, what are they going to talk about next? And next, we're going to have Kelly back in another year. Maybe we can get him to bring Jenny with. If he has anything amazing happen in the meantime, hey, man, get a hold of me. Some amazing earth-shattering thing happens when you have on the show. I'll talk about it.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, Duke.
Well, it's always a pleasure. Everybody loves you, Kelly. You don't do enough shows often enough, so they always love it when they get a chance to see you on somebody else's show talking. And don't forget that you've been given the invitation to come up here multiple times. I will give you the maximum chance to see a Bigfoot and run toward it with your camera.
Right on.
All right, everybody else, you know the drill. Be kind to each other. Be really good. And unless you're an expert, do not take your camera and run toward the Bigfoot.
And
We'll
don't
see you all
hug the
later.
Wookiee.
And don't hug Wookiees. Say that again, Kelly.
Don't hug the Wookiee.
There you go. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
So make sure that you're kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puckwudgie. And for God's sake, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee.